Hi everyone, nice to meet you all. My name is Maria Elena and I am happy to be here. Thank you, Eva, and the Berlin Music Commission for inviting me. So I can maybe start sharing my presentation as well, but just a few words about myself. I am an environmental consultant, a communications and campaign strategist. I've spent years working in the environmental industry. I was with Greenpeace and I collaborated with different organizations. Right now, I'm an independent consultant and an entrepreneur. And in 2021, I founded We Move Waves, which is my consultancy, where I basically collaborate also with cultural organizations and artists. And I decided to um, establish We Move Waves because I think it's very important to find new platforms and more creative ways to communicate about environmental and social impact issues. So I hope this presentation is gonna be helpful for you. Oh, I'm also a bass player and a music lover, by the way. So that's what brings me to music. All right, so let's start. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, yes,
All
Molly.
right, cool. Okay, so what we'll cover today, close this one. Okay, so we're gonna talk a little bit about, first we're gonna define a couple of concepts that are very important when talking about sustainability, so to make sure that there is common understanding around that. And then we're gonna talk a bit about the potential power of music with storytelling. And I will give you a few tips about how we can create better stories and change narratives for change adaptation and resilience. Oops. Okay, this is me. So this is actually, we've already covered this before. So it's great to see that a lot of you are in the music industry, and also very interesting that someone from a different background in architecture is coming. Actually, also the building industry, it's another very important sector that needs to be involved in this. So let's start with sustainability. What is sustainability? In general, the common understanding is that it's about balancing resources, limited resources on the planet, so that they can be ensured to future generations as well, so that we don't deplete them all. Now, sustainability is also about balancing environmental, social, and economic systems. So there are different things that we need to think about when we talk about being sustainable. It's not just about the environment, but also about the social impact that it has on communities and also on economic impact. One important thing to consider when thinking about climate strategies is to consider, for example, just transition that you might have heard about. And it relates to the cultural and music sector as well. And basically, it's how can we bring everyone on board, including the workers from sectors that are currently using fossil fuels and other unsustainable resources, how we can ensure that they're part of the transitions and that they're involved in the process and not that the transition is imposed from top down and they are excluded from this. I'm gonna move this down. Okay, maybe I can just go. Yeah. So the next concept is about intersectionality. So this is a very complex figure that you see here. But basically, what is intersectionality? You might have heard about this as well. So the thing is that when we want to talk about true climate action, we also need to consider different factors that are related to a person or to a community of people. And this includes race, gender, cultural background, and also like class and socioeconomic disparities. If these elements are not integrated, then policies and change, including narrative changes, cannot be effective. So I want to mention that this intersectionality framework comes from the Black feminist activists. And you can see here in the image that there are gender, class, ethnicity, age. Sometimes people are excluded because of their age as well, or because they have different types of abilities. And how we can make sure that we really build something together that it's inclusive it's one of the key aspects that we need to consider if we want to do effective storytelling that really brings real change. So, and the next point is about why artists and music. So, I think we all know that music transcends barriers. It transcends language barriers, cultural barriers. It makes us feel part of something big, of something that we're all doing together, and it taps into our emotions. So, this also means that actually music can open and can make the audiences more open to take climate action. And on the other hand, there has been research conducted recently by Planet Reimagined, which is an organization founded by musicians, sorry, I'm confusing the language, musicians Adam Met, together with Climate Outreach, that shows that actually music lovers care about climate and are willing to act. So this research was conducted mostly in the US, but honestly, we've seen similar results when research was conducted in other countries as well, which basically shows that 70% of fans of music lovers are open to artists speaking up about climate, and that even 40% they find it inspiring when artists actually advocate for change. So this is very important to consider because a lot of people, a lot of artists are actually afraid, or people want in general, to be honest, are afraid to talk about climate and environmental action. But we see that there is a positive perception around that, and there are also ways to, mitigate potential backlash. This will not be part of this presentation, but if there is interest, I can show some tips as well later. All right. The second point is that artists can choose to inspire better futures. So one narrative that I've seen sometimes is that, artists should be artists. They shouldn't be involved in politics or in matters that impact the society, which in my opinion is something that couldn't be furthest from the truth, because a lot of music genres were actually born as well as a form of protest and resistance from the civil rights movements, that the black musicians that influenced the civil rights movements and so on. Moving forward throughout the years, there have been a lot of artists who have been advocating for change, and then that have actually inspired people through their songs, sometimes using allegories. So, like through different meanings of expressions in their music, they've communicated about important issues. And they've, for example, I can think about the Bob Dylan and how he shifted, influenced all the conversation around Vietnam War as well. So this will not be the first time, of course, that artists become advocate, that they have the power to become advocate and to also help us imagine better future. Because it's very important with all these narratives that we have now around doom and gloom in the environmental sector. It's very important also to have messages of hope and resilience, of basically the possibility, the hope that a different world is possible. That is not that the narratives are not just focused about what we shouldn't do and about deprivation, but about what are the things that creatively together, using our imagination, bringing our imagination into reality, we can do to create a better future. All right, so this one is actually a snapshot from a video that from AJ Plus, so Al Jazeera. So, well, what do you see here? Basically, the point is that fandoms can also turn into movements of positive change. Al Jazeera was conducting this research about the power of K-pop or Korean music and how it can mobilize fandom. So what happens is that in the case of K-pop, for example, fandoms are really knit tight, and sometimes they operate as grassroots movements, which I find very fascinating. They organize their own initiatives. If a singer or a band that they follow comes up with initiatives or propose something, they try to match it. So it happened with Black Lives Matters, where, for example, some singers, some bands were making donations for Black Lives Matters, and the funds were trying to match that. This case, why do you see Trump here and his beautiful face? Well, because this is from 2020. Basically a group of BTS this Korean band, fans in the US, they decided to troll Trump and went viral for that. So Trump was touring. It was organizing some rally for his campaign in 2020. And so fans basically bought a lot of, not bought, sorry, they reserved tickets that were for free, and then they didn't show up. So the rally in Tulsa in 2020 was almost empty. And it went viral because, yeah, and some people started wondering, like, how is that possible? The fandoms actually um, teenagers who are not always teenagers, but how is it possible that they can organize something like that? So yeah, this is also something that is very important to consider, that fandoms really, and group of music lovers really hold immense potential to drive positive action. Now we move on to storytelling. So this is a quote by Margaret Atwood that you may all know. And the quote says, "You're never going to kill storytelling because it's built in the human plan. We come with it." What does it mean? It means that we are wired for stories. Stories are part of us, and they are also our superpower. Why is that? Why is storytelling a powerful tool? Because stories, they are accessible. They transport us to different worlds, and they can, like I mentioned before, they can help us imagine different realities. And basically, we also tend to remember things not because of through our rational thoughts, but because of our emotional memories. So if something triggers one very strong positive or negative emotions in ourselves, it activates something at the brain level, and it makes us remember something and sometimes also act upon it. So this is the superpower of storytelling. What makes stories important, because as I mentioned, they awaken emotions that inside us that drive change, and stories can be relatable because we can immerse in the story and feel it like it's find commonalities with our own story, and engaging, because even when we read fiction, sometimes we try to identify with actually the hero of the story, and so we also end up cheering up for them, or living with the suspense of knowing what's coming next, and we cheer for the characters of the story. Sometimes we even find commonalities, different pieces of ourselves in the different characters of the story. So that's what makes stories memorable. Okay. Um, what about the data? So a lot of conversations in the environmental sector is about, but we need to have the data, we need to show the data. And yes, for sure, like the data is extremely important, and it's what builds the foundations, it explains us the problem, and it also gives us the practical solution. So how can we tackle the problem? We can use the data, but data is not what is gonna make us change our mind, but stories are. Stories make something unforgettable. So we need to use data as the basis and as the foundation, and build a story around that that can tap into people's emotion and bring them on the journey. Okay, I just want to stop here 1 second, just checking if there is any question. Where is Zoom? Eva, is there any question in the chat?
No.
All right. So, has anyone, if no one has questions, I will just go ahead. All right, so. Okay, so how do we actually build stories that are more engaging and memorable? I just want to make one note that in the next slides, in the next few slides, you'll see that I mentioned music fans, or it's specific, I mean, that I mentioned, of course, the music industry, but these are like universal tips, universal questions that we need to ask ourselves when we do communications, when we want to do proper storytelling and communications. So You can apply that as well when you, for example, about architecture, if you're in a meeting with clients, if you're talking with friends, if you're thinking about a project and you want to give it some visibility, anything, this will work. So the four key questions of communication and are the following ones. The first is who. Everyone that I work with knows that the first thing I ask when they come up with an idea or a project is, yes, but who are you talking to? And no, general public, it's not an answer because there is no general public. There are different people that we can try to categorize somehow, but you can't have one message that fits everyone. So it's very important to understand who we are talking to, who our audience is, what their values are, and also, hi, Alicia, and also see how we can, uh, sorry, so who our audience is and what their values are, and how we can tap into their values. Is there any key entry point, meaning any value that we might have in common with them that can help us bridge the gap and communicate a specific message? And then the second question is why? Why are we doing what we are doing? What is our motivation, or our motivator? What drives our purpose? Why do we think it's important to do what we are doing? And then the third question is, so what? And this is the emotional hook, meaning this is what is gonna bring your audience in. The so what is about explaining what the stakes are and why they are important also for the audience. So for example, in environmental terms, talking about the environment, what are we gonna lose? What are we gonna get? What are the things that we can contribute to a better world? How would that look like? So what is the reality that is changing for our story and for us taking action? And the last point that is very important is that we always feel like we have 20 messages that we want to say, that we want to communicate, but it's fundamental to have one core message that you want audiences to take with them once they leave. So, for example, even when I prepare talking points for campaigners going to policy meetings, they need to, if they remember like what is the key core message that they want to communicate, and no matter what needs to be communicated to the audience, that really also make it much more easier to, speak in public or to talk with media, because you can use different type of words and structures that we will see, but it's very important that you have clear what is your main message. And on this note, I would like to ask you if you can share, when you think about your story, what is the one thing that you would like people to take away? And this can be when you present yourself, when you talk about the work that you do, or if you're involved currently in any campaign or thinking about, yes, communicating more about sustainability in the music industry. I'll leave the floor to everyone. Oops. Eva?
We have no messages yet.
No, I'm just checking if someone wants to also speak up, not in the chat, but if they wanna share their story, anything that they're working on, basically the core message. What is your core message when you present yourself and when you say about why you're involved in sustainability in the music industry? Could you share it?
Well, since no one wants to share it, I would.
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Okay, it was me. Okay, cool.
No, I'm asking everyone, but if you could start, maybe
Yeah,
that will
I'll
help.
start.
Yeah.
I like to, like, okay, maybe it's a bit egocentrical, but I like to, help make a real change. feel that I can contribute to like changing people's minds, or even, I don't know, in some way like contribute to um, make a real change and engage people into becoming more like with more aware of sustainability, not only like at events but also in their day-to-day life. So that's about
Great.
me.
And if I may ask, sorry to put you on the spot, but
Uh,
if you share with someone why you think that it's important to communicate sustainability in the music industry, what is your one message, one thing that you will tell them?
Uh, I'd say that music has the power to inspire emotions. So we are um, in a like ideal industry to go beyond the data and to actually reach emotions where you can actually, inspire someone to do better and to want to change. So, yeah, because data is great and data is very valuable, but only data won't make you change and make a 180-degree change of who you are, what you believe in. And yeah, so that's what I think, that um, we have powerful tools, um, and yeah, and it would be great to be able to use them to engage and to inspire. Would
Great.
someone else like to? Yeah,
I
we
see
have,
Nuria.
yeah, Nuria.
Brave Nuria.
Hello. I agree 100% with Eva, but I would like to add something from my personal experience. When I was managing a festival, I did production and sustainability. And the storytelling that I wanted to implement has had two sides. Internally in the organization, how to explain what is sustainability, what we have to do every department, like this cross-departmental influence, and also being practical with the budget you have, with the tools you have, with the time you have and energy. I focus more on my pedagogical or instruction. I don't know how to say, the signage, the posters, the communication into the festival was more like, be aware to do this action is like this. For instance, near here you will have a recycling point. In the bars crew, please, here you have to do that. More instructional or more pedagogical, how to do the sustainability. And then on the online platforms, or like screens or toilets, is more focused on the audience, was more be aware and learn new habits, do these things new. It's like a step before to be inspiring. Was more step by step, something like this. More, maybe it was less creative on the message, but was very, do this like this because we need it. you know
Yes. You know why I think this is positive? Because it gives people a clear call to action, tell them what to do, which is
yes.
actually something very important that you need to have a communication in communications. A lot of messages, they have very, this is the other question after the audience that I always ask people I work with.
Mm,
What do we want people to do? People, even
yeah.
it can be even something like share this video. It doesn't have to be something super complicated. Actually, the easiest you make it for your audience, the better it is. Thank you for sharing this. One thing that I wanted to mention here is that storytelling is an immense world of, there are so many things to say. So this is just an intro to with some tips on storytelling and what storytelling is. Then, of course, when we talk about communications, for any organizations, we have internal and external communications. So, which always also follow different techniques. You have behavior change comms. So it could be a webinar of 30 hours. But what would be interesting to gather from this conversation with you all is also what are other things besides the things that I present today that might be helpful to work on next time and to maybe create other webinars and so on. Yeah, so we are not gonna go too much into details on external and internal comps, but there are some tips on how you can tell stories, even on signatures actually, that you will see throughout the communication. Okay.
We have Alba, who has written, I would say that I like to address ecological issues, but also social and economical ones, because they're connected, but also because in music, the conditions in economical issues are weak, and also because music has such a big social impact that I would like to profit actively of that. Thank you, Alba.
Thank you, Alba. Yes, I agree 200%. And also this is a clear one message, one key core message that Alba has. So it's very clear for me how I'm listening now, okay, what she's doing and what is really important for her. And even taking action, Oh, maybe we could collaborate because I know exactly what she's doing. So it's easier for me because she was so clear to that this message sticks to my memory. All right. Anyone else that wants to share? Otherwise, we'll go back to the presentation.
I think we can continue with the presentation now.
Oh, good. Did you like Omar? See, if you have so many things in your brain, it's very difficult to remember what you want to communicate. All right. So, what are the elements of a compelling story?
Your presentation, your screen is not shared.
Oops. Okay. Weird. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Da, da, da. Can you see now?
Yes.
All right. So, what are the elements of a compelling story? So, whatever we communicate. So, when I say story, it can even be any kind of message. Again, even if I'm talking with a friend or I'm presenting a report, because even with reports, to be honest, it's still people who read it. So as much as you want to communicate all the data and so on, if you can find a hook that actually keeps people attention and a few key points that you want them to stick with them, that's really helpful. We are made of stories. Stories are everywhere. So this is basically a universal concept. This is not just if you're writing fiction, just to explain. So we need a clear structure. So what is the beginning, what is the middle, and what is the end of a message? Some characters that are relatable. So like I was saying before, we can feel identify ourselves with the main character or with another character of the story and become the hero of the story. What does it mean to become the hero or the heroine of the story? To be someone who has the power, the agency to change things through our actions. A story, to be compelling, always needs a conflict or a complication. That doesn't mean that, you have to have something violent or so on, but that there must be a complication that in this case can be, for example, though we are living in a climate crisis and, we're on the brink of collapse, but that then, as the heroes of the stories, possibly together with others, we solve this and we go through a transformation that actually leads to the creation of a new reality. Like any story, positive or negative, tragedy or comedy, as at the end, a transformation, meaning there is a new situation. So you start from a status quo and through a series of adventures and conflicts and accidents and so on, you arrive at a resolution, at a new reality. A story is not the same from the beginning. The status quo is not the same at the beginning and the end. Otherwise, the story will be very uninspiring. All right, so I'm gonna present you with the 3 framework three frameworks that you can use. This one, especially the ABT, the and but therefore, is very useful when communicating short messages, when pitching ideas. So can even be shorter than the one that you see here, but it can be used very effectively on signatures, on short messages, on social media. So it starts with a description of the status quo. So for example, I'm taking here the example of a festival organizer. So our festival celebrates creativity and diversity, and we want to be a platform for positive change. Then there is a but, the conflict. But the environmental impacts of festival is significant because of different reasons: waste, carbon emissions, and resource uses. And therefore, the therefore is the resolution. What is the action that we're taking? Therefore, we've implemented a green initiative. We're doing A, B, and C. We're reducing single-use plastics, partnering with local vendors, and encouraging attendees. So if you start using this structure, you will see that even as an Instagram post, even a small signature festival can actually draw more attention than if you would only use and. So, our festival celebrates diversity, and we know there are problems, and I don't know, it's very uninspiring. So to hook the attention, you need to present this conflict and the resolution. I hope these are clear and not technical. These are like just a few story frameworks that usually storytellers use. The second one is the SCQA, so situation, complication, question and answers. Might seem similar to the one before, but the difference is this is a bit more discoursive. It's usually, it's used more in business consulting when talking to partners, clients, funders in business proposals. And why is that? Because you present the situation, you present the complication, and then you present the existential question. So there is always a question. Okay, given the status quo and given the complication that we are facing, what is the question that we need to ask ourselves? So the question is, for example, how can we ensure that tourists are sustainable without losing their magic? Yeah, so this is the problem of the client, partner, founders that you're trying to solve, and then you come up with the answer. So in this case, it will also be we team up with sustainability experts, and we did this, and that. These are tricks. I know that at a first glance they might seem a bit similar, but when you start developing messages considering these few elements, they all work, they can all be engaging, but you will see that your stories will start having a better hook. Okay. Is there any question at this point? I guess not. It's a bit weird because I cannot see anyone.
No
Right,
question.
all right. And then the final one, and it's probably the most well known, is the story mountain. As you can see here as well as beginning conflict or resolution. This one is used more in fiction and for longer forms of storytelling. So I took the example here of an artist who describes, it's very descriptive, especially at the beginning, about the status quo, and it describes also the emotions that that person is feeling. So for example, I grew up in a place where the environment shaped my music. I was surrounded by nature's beauty, just conveying like colors, smells, sounds, tapping into people's five senses so that you can bring them in the scene. And then there is, of course, a conflict, like in every story. So, but when I started touring, I realized how much waste and emissions we were creating. And in this case as well, it can go further down into the emotion. So I was feeling really bad, but I knew that, but I had to do that because I needed to work on my career. I didn't know what to do. I was lost. And then you have the resolution. The resolution is also about an action that's been taken. So in this case, is I committed to making a change. I did reduce travel impact. I talked to my fan, and together with my fans, we're planting trees. We've done an initiative. No, I know that planting trees is not always but the point is to have to how do you also then bring the audience in? How do you share that, for example, your journey is not only yours, but it's become then part of a collective journey with other people have joined and are taking action together with you after you took the first step. All right. Yes. Is there everything at this point clear on the framework? If it's not, just feel free to ask. All right. So if not, let's move on. The next slides and the final ones are more focused on the music industry. So this applies also if you're working as a label, as a festival organizer, and so on. This is also part of research conducted by Climate Outreach. So how can artists inspire climate action? And again, that's a list of tips. So this one is to speak directly to them like a friend. Forget about the microphone. What does it mean? It means that basically one good way to tell a story in most cases is to speak to the other person as if they were a friend. So not in a top-down way, of course, not as if you need to necessarily show that you're the expert in the field and you know it all, but more like having a bilateral conversation. Bilateral conversations are what works the best. They also involve feedback from the other part. And so you put out your message, you have the feedback, and then you can also tweak and improve your message after receiving the feedback from the others. So it's a two-way conversation. That absolutely it's for organizations, for anyone, it's much, much better than having a top-down, because yes, people want to have clear call to action, but sometimes if it becomes too much top-down, it can be like, hey, not very pleasant. But that's the same for some, we have examples from artists out there like Billie Eilish, Massive Attack, and Coldplay that we know that they're making their tours more sustainable, but the impact comes when they speak directly to the fans. So yeah, like even a few words on stage or a direct message to fans through a video can actually inspire action. Okay, then the next one is about authenticity, which is a word that comes again and again. And actually, it also shows why some platforms right now are having more success than others. For example, I was talking to someone recently about TikTok and Instagram, and if you see like why TikTok is so popular, especially with younger generations, is because of the authenticity, where Instagram looks very curated and like a showcase of beautiful images. You see people on TikTok like, yes, and today, with a different camera angle and, basically because they just want to share their raw feelings, their raw thoughts about a situation. And to be honest, yeah, sometimes it's more relatable because it's definitely more relatable to, it's easier to relate to someone that is not too filtered. And also the other thing to remember is that music lovers are not, when they talk to you, and you can be again a festival, a label, an artist, anyone speaking about taking action on the environment, they're not expecting to talk with a scientist. So you don't need to worry about talking like one. It's important to share why you're doing what you're doing, what action you're taking, how they can join you, and also be very transparent on your level of where you're at. You don't need to pretend that you're perfect. And we know that there are a lot of issues now around greenwashing or greenhashing, basically declaring something that you are not, declaring that you're taking steps towards sustainability while it's not true, or even greenwashing, meaning that now a lot of organizations and companies are afraid to speak up to not to speak up, but like they're afraid to show the progress that they've made. See, anyhow, and this is also a problem because it means that it will become more and more difficult to build trust if you're not transparent. So, okay, I'll just Catherine.
Anne-Catherine wants to say something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question for the things you said before. I didn't really understand it. You mean that I think you talked about having a dialogue
Yes,
from musician to fans.
yes.
How how can that how can that happen via social media? I mean, on stage during the program, you can't really have a conversation with somebody, right? That I did not understand this.
Yes. No, thank you for your question. Yeah, when I mean a conversation, when in communications, when we say having a bilateral conversation, we don't mean like that we sit down and talk, but that we get also the opinion of the counterpart. So, for example, when I was working on Greenpeace campaigns, yes, that was done through social media. What does it mean practically? We were doing a campaign, we were creating some communications products, no, releasing reports, making social media posts, and so on. But we never stopped the comments. Sometimes we asked in our posts, we asked the audience, what are you doing about that? What do you think we should do? What it's, asking questions so that you get feedback from them. And there are so many different creative ways to do that. So this is more into the tactics. It depends. You can also do it sometimes with focus groups. Yeah, you can I think the easiest part is to through social media or for maybe fun initiatives. I don't mean that on getting someone on stage. Yes, if you can get someone on stage and talk to them right away, that might also be an idea. But it's more about not just communicating what you're doing, but also getting feedback from the others.
In several ways. I understand.
Yeah.
Thank
Yes,
you.
because the see that's this basically the strategy is okay, we need to get feedback from the others. We need to get fans involved. And then you think about that's the concept. And then
And
you think
we
about the
react on it,
tactics.
right? We react on it. We take it, we give the message out. We want to know what you think about it,
Yeah.
and we listen to you and we react. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can think, like I said, you can think about a lot of tactics. So after you have, okay, I want to have a bilateral conversation. That's the strategy. Okay, let's think about the tactics. Maybe at a festival, I don't know. You can depend because it depends on every single reality, but you can think about having, yeah,
Making a panel and sitting on a panel as musician.
having a public campaign even,
Yeah.
and then get the feedback from the fans or
Yeah.
festival goers, and then respond to that, of course,
Mm.
taking
Yeah.
action upon their feedback. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
thank you. Cool. Okay, so yes, this was about authenticity, and authenticity, of course, builds connection because if I see it's very difficult to relate to someone who is or pretends to be perfect. I think that sharing the struggles and what we are actually trying to do, and what even we find difficult and what kind of actions we're taking on that's what builds authenticity, and that's what builds trust with others. So very important to keep in mind. Oops. Then the other thing is take meaningful action together. So as we saw before, a lot of music lovers are actually open to act. They're keen when people in the music industry speak out about it. But the thing is that as many of us, they don't know how. So because environmental, social impact issues, they are so complex and complicated that we always want the one thing that I've heard the most is, yeah, I want to do something, but I don't know what, because everything feels so overwhelming. Yeah, I don't know where to start. So I think as people that have a platform, we really can take very important steps and, you know, create a journey for them. So give them ideas on where to start, what is one first thing that they could do. And also, one thing that I would like to add is that we need to show that it's not a one-off thing. It's not like, yeah, we're taking action now at this concert or at this festival and it's done. We need to take people on a journey and make them part of this journey. They become the heroes. Like as a festival, for example, we are doing this, and it's not just about communicating what we are doing this year, it's also about communicating, hey, we were there 5 years ago. These things happened. We realized that this was the whole complication. We've been taking actions. We're not perfect yet, but this is what we're doing, and this is how you can be part of the journey. So you also build a community around an idea, about around an event, and you know, people then are also interested in knowing what's happening next. Can I be part of this? Can I do something more? It's very interesting. I would also say that yes, it's important to communicate about individual actions, which are really important, but we also need policy changes. We need narrative shifts. We need to put pressure so that some policies, some collective behaviors are changed. And I'm just saying this because it's important to communicate about small things that people can individually do, but it's even better to communicate what we can do collectively. All right. And the final thing is, you know, just remember that whoever you are, you're not alone in this. There are a lot of us who are trying to work for a better world. We're lost sometimes. It's very hard as an environmental activist. It's really hard. And sometimes I ask myself, oh, but you know, like what actually is motivating me always to go on, it's been really music and arts. It's really help me go through a lot of struggles and give me the motivations to go forward, and also seeing that I'm not alone in this, and there are communities of people that are happy to connect and work together on something beautiful. All right, so this was the presentation. As I said, this has been just like a starting some, you know, on storytelling tricks, of course, when applied to more concretely to a festival or a concert, I mean, yeah, it's always good to build a communication strategy around it and see, like we were talking about before, what are some tactics, some ideas, creative ideas that can be implemented concretely to see progress. But yeah, I will be happy to discuss with you. I've written down some questions here that hopefully can stimulate some discussion. I'm happy to take your questions and also see if this was useful, or if there is anything that in the future you would like to explore more. For example, one thing I mentioned is that a lot of artists are afraid to speak up. So maybe we can think about how to, you know, get ready to speak in public, confront social media backlash sometimes, basically crisis communications. Okay, and Catherine?
Yeah, thank you very much for this presentation. I want to say two things. First of all, to empower you in this topic you had in the beginning, when artists say, or other people also say, I'm not political. I don't want to have a political message. It's not possible to not be political. And we are part of society because we are on this planet as a living person. And when we say, I'm not political, then this is a political message. Then you give power to the people who are really you know, when you go for votes, for example, when you don't go for vote, you give power to the really bad people.
Yeah.
And we all have a responsibility as a single person. We all influence each other. or our the people around us by what we are doing, what we are not doing, what we are saying, and what we are not saying. And as a public person, I hope this is in English as well, the same word, I just translated it from German into English. As a public person, for example, an artist who is very well known by a lot of people, has even more responsibility because, of course, there's no dialogue, but really happening. But what you are saying and what you are doing is influencing a lot of people. So when somebody says, I'm not political, this influences a lot of people because it brings the message not being political and not caring about the political situation is okay. You know what I mean?
Yes, just want to, because I agree with you. I just want to clarify. I'm not sure I understood correct. I never mentioned anywhere that this shouldn't be political.
No, I'm telling you, excuse me,
Okay,
maybe
okay,
my
okay.
tone was
No,
wrong. You don't
okay.
see me, that's why maybe,
Yeah.
and you don't know me. I mean, I wanted to empower you, you know, with this argumentation, with this,
Oh yeah.
you
No,
know,
but what I was referring, yeah, what I was for me, everything is political. I
yes,
think what
yeah,
political means that it belongs to the city. So everything that happens to us. I think what a lot of people mean sometimes is that they don't affiliate with a specific political party. But
yeah,
for me, everything is political. So
I know. But
what
it's,
what I meant there is that when I mentioned about the civil rights movement and how, if you're referring to that slide, it's just that very honestly, like I come from the environmental space and I started working in the music and cultural space later. And
mm,
so a lot of times the question that was asked to me is like, why? Because people only associate music with entertainment.
mm-hmm,
So for me, it was just a way to say, and I know that everyone in this group is already aware of that, but the music has always been a political, I mean, so there it
totally.
and arts and other forms as well, because they create culture, and we are also living, it's not just, you've probably heard this as well, it's not just a climate crisis, it's a cultural crisis. And if we need to shift the narrative, it means we need to change the story, we need to change behavior. To change behaviors, you change culture. And you don't do it through scientific reports, you probably do it through a movie. And
Mm,
now, more and more, I see that just in the conversation that I'm personally having one-to-one with friends and in the business spaces. Now it's like, oh, now I see what you're trying to do, because there is more and more interest in culture. Even at COP21 that just ended, that was a mess, but at least there is more and more focus on the importance of culture and cultural policies, finally. So yeah, I totally agree with what you're doing. I
yeah,
also recognize though that for a lot of people it's very difficult to speak up. It was
yeah,
for me as well, because it's difficult to be, no one is an expert 100% on all the environmental topics. I realize it's impossible.
yeah,
Not even like even scientists, they specialize sometimes in one thing, yeah. But what we do in comms is to get prepared. So, you, for example, can work on frequently questions and answers. For example, expected questions that the media or the public might ask you, and then you already prepare some answers.
mm,
That will, facilitate a lot the conversation. Actually, on this, if I may suggest, we developed a toolkit with the European Network of Cultural Institutes that Eva was also part of. And there is actually a section on frequently asked questions that the media and the public might ask about why cultural is related why to climate change, why the cultural institutions are getting involved. So be
can you
ready.
share it in the chat?
Sure, sure. Yes, I'll find
Mhm.
a link and
And I wanted to say another thing to empower you concerning the that you ask yourself, why am I doing this and all the struggle and stuff. What helps me is there's a thing I don't it's in English media as well, these good news channels. You
Mhm.
have it on Instagram and some have just a website. We have in Germany one, it's called Good News. Very simply, Good News, and they have a newsletter, and they send a newsletter every day at 6 p.m. and with the best news, good news from all around the world concerning sustainability.
Mhm.
So you don't only have the bad things because I think all around the world now media works, 99% of media are working with the catastrophe.
Yeah.
Not the positive news. That is changing bit by bit now. And yeah, I think it's very important, especially for us working in sustainability and having to do a lot of some struggles to keep our our heart and our soul positive, to surround us with the positive stories that can be told.
Yes, and we need to show that the solutions, when implemented, work.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
Thank you, Anna-Catherine. I believe we can, just stop the recording now and continue with the Q&A session. But before we stop the recording, I wanted to thank Maria Elena for such an inspiring and informative session, and your insights into crafting compelling messages using storytelling effectively and engaging audiences with sustainability campaigns have been incredibly valuable. I hope everyone found today's webinar helpful and that you've gained practical tools to incorporate sustainability into your communication strategies. And as Maria Elena highlighted, our ability to communicate effectively plays a critical role in driving meaningful change in the music industry and beyond. So don't forget to check our website for upcoming events and resources. And thank you once again for joining us today. And a huge thank you to Maria Elena for sharing her expertise. Thank you.
thank you.
Have a wonderful day. Okay, so now I'll stop the recording.